was almost done on the cheap, and that's partly the French's fault because they were hosting it, but it deserved to be a bigger occasion, and it wasn't, and we have to take some responsibility for that.
Welcome to Broadcasting on the Cheap, brought to you by 4020 Live. John says, no such thing as Lancashire in a rugby league context. It was Barrow with Amanda Wilkinson versus the rest of Super League. That's the origin game.
Not much of a trial, to be fair.
Otherwise, it's St Helens and Wigan.
But if Barrow were deemed to be Cumbria, do they play in Yorkshire or Lancashire?
St Helens and Wigan plus Tara Jane Stanley versus Leeds and York. Oh no, they've got Ebony Partington as well.
Needs to be more than
that. Carson said, not disrespecting the ref, not something Rishi would do. And no, can't do politics. We've got an election coming up.
It's purdah.
Yeah, we can't do that. Are we proper broadcasting? No, not really. No. I saw an article today about people in Wakefield and Rothwell could vote for a former rugby league player. So
apparently it's been reinstated.
Yeah. If it all goes wrong,
it's your constituency.
I know it is. I got a leaflet from him. If it all goes wrong, you can set up a podcast because that's what everyone else does. So look forward to that on Friday morning. Doing things on the cheap. Now, my mate was at Manchester Airport on Friday, flying in and saw the England team coach. He didn't know who it was.
Right. Were they working around the duty free?
Probably. At least they all behaved, didn't they? Two sets of rugby teams in an airport for 6 hours, and they all behaved. No stories. So well done on behaving. That's the low bar of life now. Well done on not getting in trouble, rugby players. Well
Hopefully
done
they were all buying copies of 4020 in W.H. Smith Travel.
Well, they picked them up and then they'd hidden some of the things inside them.
Put them to the front of the rack, if nothing else.
I do tell people to do that. Do that and take pictures and send them in. We have to accept the inalienable fact that we're skint, aren't we? As a sport, we're skint.
There's two things. One is the game has no money. It's not just us. Like the IRL don't have money. The World Cup doesn't generate money. The RFL don't have money. The French Federation don't have money. So you can have as many grandiose plans as how to solve the issue of International Rugby League. But one thing you have to bear in mind is you're doing it without any money at the moment.
So the players going on a scheduled flight. It's not great, but
they're only being paid
needs must, yeah,
£250 because they're hoping to top that up when Samoa come over.
Was it just the men getting £250 or did the women get? Because in the World Cup, of course, everything was equal.
But you can't pay what you haven't got. But I think they've talked about if the ticket sales generate sufficient income for the Samoa series, the players will get more, and over the course of those 3 games, they will get what is deemed to be a fairer rate.
It's like, say, working for a radio station, and if it makes a profit one day, we'll get shares in the company. There's a reference for about one person listening, I think, today. Hello to you if you're listening. So we get there late anyway. So it's like the Catalans flying over for the Wheelchair Cup final. They got there, won, buggered off again. So that happened, and then we get to the game. We get to the logging into Super League Plus, which I didn't have any problem with, and I was able to log in at Wembley to watch the 1895 Cup final while I was in the press conference with Sam Burgess. So it works fine for me. If it didn't work for you, I don't know what to say. So it worked fine for me, worked fine for Phil.
I don't understand technologies, but I was just grateful it worked and it didn't log out or buffer or whatever. And we're in an age where we shouldn't be surprised that is the method by which we see it. What we can talk about is the quality of what we saw and whether that was up to standard for an international game. I think we can also mention that with all the platforms the BBC have now got, and bearing in mind that historically every England, particularly men's international, has always been on the BBC. I think there were a couple on Sky, weren't there? But the BBC is the home of International Rugby League. They could have taken the pictures and put it on BBC Three or the Red Button, and that would have added a little bit more credibility and kudos to the event. But I didn't think the quality of the production was what you would expect for an international game.
And because I can only speak from experience, and that Challenge Cup final in 2018, because I was there and I saw what we did. We had to produce that to a certain standard to be allowed on the BBC website. So, and that was with 2 cameras, one of which I manned for a little bit. So, don't tell the unions. I guess the problem is it wasn't going to be on normal telly for whatever, because when did we announce it? 2 months before?
Yeah, not
We
long
announced
enough
it
to
before.
leave.
So there's Glastonbury on, there's the Euros, there's Homes Under the Hammer, the Athletics, which usually would be on the TV, that was on the red button. Sky had a myriad of things. They're not interesting. Why would they show it? People saying why aren't Channel 5 showing this? Why are they going to tear up their schedules for a couple of international games from a sport they cover none of the time? Unless we get Jane McDonald to present it and sneak it in stealthily to Channel 5, that's all we can do. But we didn't do that. And the quality of the coverage. And bearing in mind, things like Channel 5 has shown the world's senior snooker or the world's senior darts, which is of a basic coverage level compared to the BBC doing the snooker.
Yep.
But still, it was a cut above what we had here, which I'm assuming was produced by the local broadcaster who do the Toulouse games.
So. And you couldn't blame the commentary team, who clearly were in a hermetically sealed box about 1,500 miles away.
I'm assuming there
no
were
effect
keys or something. Yeah, I mean that didn't help, did it? If not the fact that the commentary wasn't coming from the ground, because I think in this day and age, I think we all accept that commentary can be done from wherever, especially when on TV coverage of rugby or any sport really. The commentators are commentating off the pictures you're seeing. Otherwise, it would make no sense, because they will be describing things you're not seeing, and that doesn't help. Whereas on radio, you can say whatever you want. So it doesn't matter where the commentary team are, but it does matter that you couldn't hear a thing in the stadium sounded dead. I mean, it looked as though it was, but that's but you can turn the mics up and
to a couple of people I know that were there, the atmosphere was better than it came across, because there were no real effects mics, and again, it's a simple and very basic thing. That if you want to generate atmosphere and excitement, you do need to have microphones that pick up the whatever noise there is in the stadium. And there were swathes of empty seats, but that would have again been because most of the people that were there were under the camera position. But if you have effects microphones, at least you can hear. So I thought, again, treated with less respect than an occasion like that deserves. But I also think that we need to talk about why we still have an international window in the Northern Hemisphere in the middle of the season with only 2 games in it. And that's not what the international window was brought in for. It was originally the Anzac test over in the Southern Hemisphere, a couple of Pacific tests. We're playing, I think PNG played Fiji at round about the same time. There was talk of we would have Wales and Ireland would be available to play. Scotland as well would be looking. Well, again, if you're going to have a Championship and a League One fixtures on at the same weekend, you're not going to be able to pick a Wales or a Scotland or an Ireland team, because that's predominantly where those players come from. But I would prefer now that we didn't have an international weekend, that we closed up the season, we could start a week later. And we have a bigger international option at the end, so that we could have had England and France playing in the lead up to the Samoa series, particularly now that we've only got 2 test matches with Samoa. That could have been a much bigger game, with Sean Wayne taking his side over to France the week before Samoa arrive in this country, and have a proper window where the Northern and Southern Hemisphere align, and make sure that if we know that that's when International Rugby League's being played. I think there are nations that are going to be announcing fixtures, and I don't think it's a secret. I think Ireland's men are looking to go and play in the Netherlands around about that international. We're going to have Wales and France, Ukraine and Serbia playing in the men's European World Cup qualifier. It's going to be in that window in the autumn, so we can if we're sensible about how we schedule International Rugby League, then it's more meaningful than just say, well, let's have a test in the window that we've artificially created that actually now doesn't bear any resemblance to what's happening there. The Aussies have quite rightly said it didn't really work for us. A lot of the players still wanted to keep the Anzac test where it is, but Origin works when it's in the middle of the season, it's virtually every second week, there's a real narrative. Whilst we talk about there are only 4,500 people in Toulouse, and Origin is not International Rugby League. 90,000 people watched the second game in Melbourne, which is not a rugby league city. So we've got product that will sell, and it's aligning it together so we can get best global value out of it. It's not the NRL need to buy Super League and that'll cure International Rugby League. Let's just be sensible about when we play it. And if it's going to have a global impact, then we need to be playing at the same time as they're playing in the Southern Hemisphere. And we've got this really odd week where everybody's walking around going, we had a week off for the Challenge Cup final. Now we got a week off for an international, and then we got a week off for the semi-final as well because we weren't quite good enough to get to a semi-final. So we've only actually played 3 Super League games in 6 weeks. And you're going, yeah, and that's why the Super League loses its momentum and impetus, and we've got to start building up. It's the calendar that's wrong, and the fact that we have no money. Not the principle of playing international rugby. There is still a market for it. I think everybody said that Denver didn't work, but Denver got 20,000 people there, and 20,000 people was the highest crowd to watch an England and New Zealand game for 30 odd years, I think, 40 odd years. There is a market for it. I was doing a bit of research into the 1954 World Cup because someone who was a key figure in it got inducted into a Hall of Fame recently. And 38,000 people watched a game in Toulouse, which is still the biggest attendance we've ever had. And yeah, it's got the label World Cup against it, but International Rugby League does have kudos if you sell it correct. The final in that tournament was hastily arranged. We talk about this was only arranged at 2 months' notice. Great Britain and France finished joint top of the table in the 54 World Cup, and they arranged a playoff final in Paris at the Parc des Princes at a week's notice, and 30,000 people turned up. So it can be done, and it does have kudos. And it's not always about the money that you're putting, it's about it has to be meaningful. And I don't think these tests this weekend were meaningful enough because they were out of kilter with everything else.
Well, there'll be plenty of one-cat wonders coming out of the men's team at least, and that'll be good for the future. People can write an article about those.
5 one-cat wonders.
Yeah. Bit harsh. No, it's not. Poland, Germany coming up on the 29th of September, says Carsten. So there you go. There's another one. Mark it down in your calendar.
Probably does need sanction if you could remind them to send in the correct form. Not seen it appear on the calendar yet.
Oh dear. Carsten, sort it out. You're in charge. Probably is. He might well be.
It could be the referee.
Well, I was thinking about setting up a team the other day, just because you can just set up a team and apply for League One and just claim it exists. I can't remember. It might have been Selby. I know Selby's got an amateur team, but I could just set one up anyway and just say, so setting up a team. Gonna have a team. Gonna put in League One. Right about my out.
I think it's safe to say, with all the doom and gloom that's been written about International Rugby League, and there has been a huge amount of doom and gloom, is there's probably more International Rugby League being played globally than there ever has been before, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that Africa is probably the most prolific continent at the moment, where rugby league is going from a standing start to being played on a regular basis, which is going to include World Cup qualifiers, both men and women. Men will take a little bit longer for it to germinate into a World Cup tournament because I think there's only South Africa that are full members at the moment, but there are some nations that aren't far off being full members who are playing International Rugby League. Women, and Kenya and Nigeria will play each other to see who goes into the World Series. There's more rugby being played in Polynesia and the Pacific than there ever has, and when the Pacific Championships do eventually get announced, I think there will be games that will be taken to the islands, and that again will prove to be a massive boost. So I don't think you can just write, because England and France wasn't a huge success, that what do we do about International Rugby League? We do need to have more coordination in the Northern Hemisphere, but it's not all based on England playing France at a time that's really inconvenient.